Are Red Bull making a car just for Max? Are McLaren making a car just for Lando? There's always speculation that teams are developing cars that suit one driver over another. But are they really? Well, we did some digging to find out. But first we need to thank today's sponsor, Car Vertical. They are the best tool to check used cars before buying one. They check for major accidents, odometer fraud, reports of theft, and even if the car was used as a taxi. Buying a Car Vertical report can help you save time and money as they provide pictured reports on individual cars' information such as spotted activity, mileage, and damage. So check out the link below to get 10% off a report with Car Vertical and save yourself a load of money by not buying yourself a lemon. Now, back to the video. At the start of the season, Perez was on it, and at times he was faster than Max. But now Perez has had a string of very mediocre results, whereas Max is absolutely flying. But how has this happened? Well, there are rumours swirling around that Red Bull have developed their car to work better for Max than Perez. But is this really the case? Firstly, it's worth saying there's nothing in the rules that stops teams from developing their car towards one particular driver. So if Red Bull are actually doing this, we can't get upset at them for it. But is this really the best way of going about building a fast car? Well, to answer this, we must understand how both Red Bull drivers like their car set up, because they have two very different driving styles. For Max, he's famous for wanting a car that's very pointy with lots of front end grip. And when I say pointy, I mean that the grip is biased towards the front of the car, as opposed to the rear. You can do this in a number of ways, with mechanical grip, weight distribution, or aerodynamics. But we'll get into that a bit later. More grip on the front means that the front axle has great turning, but less grip at the rear can make it unstable. This is good for Max as he likes a responsive turning, but the downside of this is a more oversteery balance and less stability on the entry to the corner. This means he's able to get the front of the car into the corner and rotate it early on. But this pointiness does create instability at the rear due to the pressure being all over the front of the car. This can cause oversteer both on the entry of the corner and on the exit, but Max absolutely excels at being able to control this. On the other side of the garage, Checo prefers a car with much more rear end grip, with the downforce prioritised over the rear tyres. The centre of gravity and pressure are more evenly distributed under braking and through the corner, because the downforce is pushing the rear of the car into the ground slightly more than on Max's car. This gives Checo the confidence to brake later as the rear of the car is more stable. However, having a rear prioritised car can mean that it could understeer more at the mid-corner. But of course, Checo will be anticipating this, meaning he will pick a racing line that will allow him to carry a higher minimum corner speed. Now, to understand where Red Bull have developed their car, we must first look back at where they have come from. At the beginning of the year, the Red Bull was really struggling with front end grip, and the car was understeering. And this was compounded by it being as much as 10 kilograms overweight, which is estimated to cost you around 2 or 3 tenths of a second per lap. Whilst the weight was a penalty for both drivers, the understeery balance favoured Perez, and it was one of the factors that led Checo to winning Monaco this year. While Perez could adapt to this more understeery car, there were obvious weaknesses for Red Bull to work on, and so they did. How did they fix these issues? Well, we've got Scarbs in to explain.
You see how they've changed the shape of the car, and that would suggest that they're trying to put the centre of pressure where the downforce tends to be focused slightly towards the rear, and that means that they can run a smaller wing. But that naturally would suggest that you're not getting the front end grip, but somehow Red Bull are getting both the mechanical and the aero grip at the front of the car that Verstappen likes, and it's very hard to see the detail in how they've achieved that, but we can see that they've really worked that car, and it's got such an excess of downforce from the underfloor that they could probably play about with the wings a little bit more. They've also had a big weight reduction program through the year as well.
We've talked a lot on the channel already about how Red Bull have been able to work the underfloor of their car to create more downforce, which has helped them in many areas. But the specific factor that Verstappen has credited his title run is weight reduction. This weight reduction in turn has given him more freedom to move the weight around. When the weight has been removed from the car, Max has been able to use this weight more flexibly and has found a better setup window, which has then led to faster lap times. Unfortunately for Checo, he's not been able to find the same time gains when the car has been developed throughout this year. But was this development on purpose from Red Bull to help Max out?
So there's this myth amongst Formula One fans that teams develop a car around a driver, and that simply isn't the case. The teams will develop the car around their simulation software, which gives them the ideal lap time, which will take into account different driving styles and things. So the team don't develop the design of the car around a specific driver. What they will do is then develop the individual setup, which is just the fine adjustments to the suspension and the wing settings, bits and pieces like that, ballast, for example, to the individual driver. I think this is where the difference between the two drivers at Red Bull is really showing. It's just in the setup and what they can do with what's available in terms of the setup window of that car between the two drivers.
And I agree with Scarbs here. The team aren't directly developing a car to help Max get faster, but with the changes they have made, it has opened up a setup window in which he is comfortable. And more so than Checo, teams will be developing the car from data. They know where they're slow compared to other teams, and they also know where they're fast. They knew early in the season that the Ferrari is mighty on the brakes, and also through the slow corners, so they'll have been working on that. But there is one thing I must mention. A large part of being a great driver is the feedback you give to the team. If you're accurate and clear with this information, the team can work better to develop the car. So perhaps Max is just better at giving feedback. Of course, it's impossible to know this for sure, but it is a possibility. Checo is also fantastic at saving tyres. If you want to find out how, click this video down here. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.